Hey Alice, welcome back. Came at a good time. I'm here with Brad Stag. Thanks for being here, man.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. I've seen you perform many times, and I'm glad we got to do this because you put on a really good show every time I've seen you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Um, yeah, you also helped put together East Side Riot. Um,
hmm
and in addition to being in the band Blind Matador, you can catch Brad and his band Blind Matador at Eastside Riot, July 27th at Five Spot. Uh, be there or be a square, I guess, because I'll be there and I'll know if you're not. do you uh do you have like a theater background? Because you're a really good showman.
No, I actually I get that all the time. Um, People will just assume for some reason. I don't know how to take that. A lot of times they say, "Oh, I could tell you were in theater. You were theater," and I wasn't at all. I mean, I didn't sing or anything. When I was in school, I was a band guy. I played in the band trumpet.
Oh, right on.
So. Yeah, so I guess I was involved in the musicals, but I was usually under the stage playing the music. I wasn't the one on the stage.
Gotcha. Well, you're really comfortable on stage. Have you been like performing in bands a long time?
I started my first proper band probably I was well out of high school by then. I think it was in my 20s, mid 20s. So I really haven't been doing it as long as a lot of other people would have been doing it. I had a lot of friends that had bands in high school, and I never had any bands in high school or anything like that. So kind of a late starter, but I have been doing it for I don't know, since 2016, maybe.
Okay.
Yeah. So, and then there's a big COVID gap in there.
Yeah.
So not too long, but I'm not new to it, so I'm pretty comfortable. But I've always been very comfortable on stage.
Hmm.
I don't really know why. The first show that I played with that band, I was as comfortable as I am now. So I don't know what it is. There's something about being on stage that's um, it doesn't it's I've never been nervous or uncomfortable on the stage. I don't know why,
Yeah.
but it comes pretty naturally. I'm having a good time, and it feels like the right place to be. So, and what's the worst that could happen? Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. It's like the stakes aren't really that high. You're just having
No, it's not like dangerous or anything. People are terrified to get on stage. But it's like, what's the worst that could happen? You forget the words, or what, you're out of key, or I don't know. It happens and then it's over. No one's gonna die. Yeah. Unless it's stand-up comedy, I would never be able to do that. That seems like the most difficult thing in the world.
I just interviewed a guy last week that's a stand-up comic, and like, yeah, man, that would be. I don't know. I think I'd be scared of that too.
It's excruciating. I mean, 5 minutes doing what I do is like that, but 5 minutes just talking, that seems like it would be an eternity. So I don't know how those guys do it. I think that from my perspective, that's like the most difficult thing to do on stage is to do like a stand-up set.
Yeah, that makes sense to me too. The guy I was talking about, Drew Harrison. Shout out to Drew. He was saying that he feels that way about music. Ironically, like,
That's really funny.
yeah, he was saying comedians and musicians are like what do you say? They're like actors and something where it's like the other one thinks the other one has it rough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was listening to somebody else was talking about it before too, and that he was a comedian. I don't remember who it was. They were saying you must be so nervous when you put out an album because no one's heard it, and you spent all this time and all this effort hoping that it's good, and then you release it, and there's nothing you can do. Like it's done. That's what it is. And if people like it, they like it. If they don't, then you're kind of screwed. Whereas they're always working on their material in front of people, so they know by the time they record a special that it's going to do well. which is interesting too, I guess. I never thought of it that way. Um, but I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, dude, you did a cover of "Have a Cigar." That
Yeah.
fucking blew me away. Like
Yeah. Thanks.
that's like that's like a big song to take on, and like I've actually heard many covers of that, and like I was really impressed. I thought it was great.
Thank you. Yeah, I've not seen a lot of people cover that one. That's part of the reason why I picked it. It's it's not it's not really easy. It's not. I mean, there are easier Pink Floyd songs that you can make sound good. That's a tricky one for some reason, but it's always been one of my favorites. I've always wanted to play it. And I had the opportunity to get Tyler from Campanula on here. I don't know if those guys have ever been on the show, but those guys are great. And he played keyboard, so I was like, all right, let's do this song because I need a keyboard player to do this song. So it's a good excuse to do this song. And I don't know, that was always a big song for me. That band has always been a huge influence on everything that I do. Um, I mean, it basically taught me how to play guitar. I like that record in particular, Shine On, Wish You Were Here, Shine On all the way through. Um, that song, that taught me how to play guitar. Like when I was in high school, I was just like sit there and listen to that over and over. So yeah, that's I'm glad you like that one. That's a special tune for me.
Yeah, you yeah, you like ripped up that solo too. That was nice. It's like
Thanks.
yeah, did
That's
you?
one of those when you play a Floyd song, it's like you can't really take liberties
Mm.
because it's such a the solos are so iconic. Like if you deviate from them, it's like, what are you doing? That's like part of the melody of the song is the like if somebody got up there and did a comfortably numb solo that wasn't the same as the record, it would be weird. So I'm glad you thought it was good because I worked on it. I
It's
worked on it
definitely
a
like
lot. Yeah.
yeah, that's a big song to take on for sure. Like, but yeah, I'm glad you did. It was great.
So much fun though. So much fun.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's such a
that's
like
probably my favorite cover that we've done.
that's one of my favorite Floyd songs, man. It's so like when you listen to the lyrics of it, it's mean. It's a mean song.
Yeah,
Um,
it is a real mean song. It's a real cynical song.
mhm.
It's like you kind of get the first taste of that like cynical dark humor that's in Roger's writing that like really comes out in Animals and then it's like 110% on The Wall, that like real cynical dark uh, kind of gross underbelly.
Yeah.
It's partially a true story too, which I think is really funny.
Oh, I didn't know that.
The there's a line in there where it's saying from like this like record exec's point of view, right? And there's a line in the song where he's talking about how big of a fan he is. Like, you guys are great. I love you guys. Which one of you is Pink? Because you like that happened to them one time when they met with the record label, and they're like, "Which I love your stuff. Which one of you guys is Pink?" And they're like, "Okay, these guys are so full of shit."
Yeah.
So yeah, that's really funny, and it's also interesting because it's one of the few Floyd songs that has a guest vocalist as the lead vocal. So it
Mm.
really sticks out because they brought Roy Harper in to sing the vocals on that, and he killed it. He nailed it because there's versions of it. You can find demos um, with Roger singing it, and he still plays it. I've seen him play it when he's been through town with his solo band, but the delivery is not the same. The Roy Harper delivery is like perfect. It's so well like sung.
Yeah.
Great tune.
Yeah, absolutely. Did you grow up with Floyd? Like what kind of music was in the house as a kid?
I did in a way. because I had a uncle that was 10 years older than me. So when he was in high school, I was kind of paying more attention to music, you know, say 6 years old, and he had like the black light posters hanging up in the basement and the incense, and he was listening to Floyd and the Dead and what else, like Fish and the Doors and all of that stuff, Led Zeppelin. And he was a drummer. So that's kind of some of my earliest memories were going down in that basement with like lava lamps and everything and like listening to this like weird music. And as I got older, he started taking like me to shows. Like my first rock concert that I ever went to was with him. So yeah, uh, I've been listening to it for a long time. But my parents were a little different. My dad listened to a lot of country, honestly, like 90s country.
Mhm.
So it was a lot of Garth Brooks. And my mom was she was I mean they both were in high school in like the 80s, so there was a lot of like 80s new wave stuff that I grew up listening to, and a lot of popular 90s songs too. She was still in her 20s, and she was really young when she had me, so she was still in her 20s in the 90s. So a lot of the big hits of the 80s and the 90s were in heavy rotation.
Right on. It's like it's a pretty healthy mix.
Yeah, I was all over the place. Yeah. And she listens to a lot. Actually, outside of that, she listens to a lot of big band music. So I grew up listening to like Benny Goodman um, and like stuff like that, um, Tommy Dorsey. And so I listen to a lot of music from the 20s and like the early jazz, swinger, and stuff like that.
That's cool. Yeah,
Mhm.
there's a lot of good stuff from that era. I'm a really big Miles Davis fan. I love
Yeah.
like
Yeah. I
all the
got real big into jazz when I was in like fourth grade. I was listening to a lot of Miles Davis, got a copy of Kind of Blue on CD when I was a kid. And I played trumpet. So it was like Miles Davis, Dizzy Gillespie, um, Freddie Hubbard. It was like kind of all the big trumpet players. And, you know, they move on to the classic combos, like the Coltrane years and get into the like Bitches Brew stuff a little bit later, and that kind of ties back into like the Pink Floyd, and you start to see some little threads of continuity. And it's like, oh, is that jazz is actually kind of related to this psychedelic thing in this way? Start connecting the dots. Um, yeah,
yeah.
yeah, a lot of jazz. Yeah, I listened to a lot of jazz when I was a kid.
What have you been listening to in like the last week?
Well, this last week, I like literally just got back from Bonnaroo just a couple
Oh
hours
shit,
ago.
nice.
So I've listened to a lot of different, like I saw my wristband now.
Hell yeah.
Um, before that though, I was I was on like a heavy Tool kick. I was listening to nothing but Tool for like 3 straight weeks, just like record by record. Every day I was just like listening to a different record.
I love Opiate.
Um,
That's
so
my favorite records.
the Tool records.
Yeah. What Opiate?
Oh,
That's like their
the
first or second one.
yeah, and they just re-released it, I
Really?
think. Yeah, like I don't know if it was a remaster or if they actually changed it. I don't know. I saw it on there and I was like, oh, that's an old song, but it says 2024 on it or something. So I don't know. They must have remastered it. But a lot of the most recent Tool record, I listened to that one a lot in the last few weeks. Um, so it's been like Tool and it's been Tool and Bach. I've been listening to a lot of Bach.
Oh, cool.
So yeah, that's how I got ready for Bonner.
How was Bonnaroo?
It was great. I go every year. I've been going since 2012.
Oh shit. I've
So
never
that
been.
was it's fun. It was very hot this year, but it's a lot of fun. Like I'm well seasoned in the ways of Bonnaroo, so it's like easy for me to have a good time because I know all the tricks and I know my way around. So
Bonnaroo vet.
it was, yeah, Bonnaroo Vet. It was a good time. Um, yeah, it was a great time. Saw a lot of good bands, some
This
bands of some friends too.
nice. This is just like personally interested, but like, what what is like what's security like there?
What is security like there? Like
Yeah,
intent?
like do they like pat you down?
No, no. It varies from person to person as far as how by the book they are or how invasive they decide to be.
I
It's
got you.
typically
Yes.
it's
Yeah.
typically practically non-existent,
Okay.
to be honest with you. Like, um, I think a lot of the security is manned by volunteers. So they just like volunteer each day. They work a few hours and they get scheduled to work their shift. And then when they're not doing that, they're one of us. They're one of the people just having a good time. So they're just kind of like, whatever. We just don't bring a bomb in here, and you're
Yeah,
good. You know,
that's awesome.
every once in a while you'll get someone that decides that they're going to be like a stickler to, I don't know, opening everything up and seeing what's in it. But
Yeah.
I, I honestly, I've gotten so good at cutting the fat and being streamlined that I don't even go in with anything. So I don't ever have any problems. So you got anything in your pockets? No, didn't even have a phone. Um,
Oh, dude, that's
so
awesome.
yeah, it's just, yeah, I don't need a bunch of stuff, but
Yeah.
yeah,
Like,
it's pretty chill as far as security goes,
okay.
I would say.
I was
Chiller than other things because I used to go to Lollapalooza every year too, in Chicago, and that's a different animal. It's not the same.
I gotcha. So okay, hashtag not all festivals.
Yeah, that one's a little bit more like getting in line for TSA.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, when you write a song, where does it start? Like like the first spark of that. I guess what I'm trying to get at is like I don't write music, but I write poetry, and it's never like I'm not like a disciplined kind of writer where I'll like sit down and like okay now I'm gonna write something. It's like
Mhm.
usually comes to me while I'm like in the car or something like that, which gives me like a lot of questions about like I don't know. I get like spiritual about it. Like is that even me? You know what I mean?
Mm.
Like did I come up with that or just pick up on that? I just
Um,
wondering what you think about that.
that's a big one.
Yeah. To simplify it, where does art come from?
I would say I tend to agree that it is. Um, I don't know if it literally is, but the experience is that it's delivered, and it tends to seem like the better it is, the more fully formed it already is by the time it gets to me. Um, whether or not it is or it's not, it doesn't really matter because it's like whatever it is. Um, but it tends to feel like I'm receiving the thing rather than like willing it into existence, which would be as miraculous as if it was being delivered to me in my mind. Because it's like, where's it coming from if it's not delivered to me? Like, where did I get that? But it feels like it. the um I think the Greeks were onto something when they talked about the muses. I think they were I think they is it literally another thinking, feeling being like me that exists on a different plane and gives it to me? I don't know, but it feels like that. So it doesn't really matter if it is or if it isn't. Just be conscious of the fact that in some crude way, that's sort of how it works. You know,
Yeah.
that's the way that this meal gets made. All right. So step one is in order to get the message, you have to be listening. So like even if it's coming to me through some sort of um, divine inspiration or like it's like the muses or some other transmission that I'm picking up on, I have to be tuned in to get it, or I'm not going to get it at all. It doesn't matter what's coming my way. So I do try to regularly make time where the only thing I am doing is listening, is waiting for that, which would be sitting down and writing. It's actively listening. So I will take time and I'll go, okay, I'm going to try to write something. Um, and make the conditions of that environment and that time be as conducive to hearing the message as I can. There's a lot to be said for like set and setting.
Yeah.
But that's not to say that sometimes I'm driving or at work or whatever, and I get a melody or changes, that keep flipping around in my head that I want to write a melody to, or there's something sticks in my mind. Like there's these little nuggets of inspiration, and then I'll always write it down because you doesn't matter how good the idea is, you will always forget it. I've done the thing before where it's like, oh, there's no way I'm going to forget that. That's my, and then 10 minutes later, you're never going to get it again.
I've been there.
So yeah, always write it down or record it. The notes app is phenomenal. Thank God. I don't think I would have written anything ever if I didn't have the voice notes app. And there's like 1,000 voice notes of me mumbling in like the bathroom of a restaurant that I'm working in or something. Most of the time they're nonsense, but that's where every song seems to be born.
Yeah, there's a thousand
Um,
rough every once in a while. Yeah.
but it's I'm not one of those writers that will wait until that happens. I think that's a mistake. Some people kind of get pretentious with it where it's like, oh no, I have to be inspired. It's like, well, what if you made an hour a day where you sat down and that's all you made room for was to be inspired? That's the same as sitting down and working.
Oh,
It's
for
the same
sure.
thing. Yeah, it's just like whatever you call it. It's like rehearsing, practicing, like, or however you want to frame it to do it. Like you got to sit down, you got to come to work. You have to sit down in the office. Nick Cave.
Love
I'm a
Nick
big Nick Cave
too.
big Nick Cave fan. He treats it like a day job. Like he has an office and a typewriter. Makes his coffee, gets dressed to go to work, and he sits in his office for X amount of hours and he types, and like it's his job because it is his job. It's literally his job. So
Yeah.
I think there's something to be said for that. And the author Neil Gaiman,
Yeah.
um, I love this thing that I heard him say is that he'll go out to write, and he writes pen and paper. Um,
Okay, cool.
when he sits down to write, he like goes out to this space at his house somewhere outside, and he sits down. And he's like, I don't have to write, but I can't do anything else. So it's just the paper and the pen, and he could sit there for 3 hours just looking up at the sky or whatever, and he can do that. He lets himself do that, but he can't do anything else. It's either nothing or write. And after a couple hours, like he eventually starts writing because there's nothing else to do. So like really making time and space specifically for it, because it's easy to forget that that's like the most important thing when you're an artist, because there's so much else that we have to do that's tangentially related to making music in any way, that you can just fill your days with that, and then you realize you haven't written a song in 6 months,
Mhm.
and it's like the most important part is actually writing. So I think it's like anything else. It's like brushing your teeth or going to the gym or whatever. Like, make time regularly where you can show up for work and actually create something.
I really,
Um,
sorry, go ahead.
no, yeah, that's basically my philosophy on writing. It's great when you get inspired randomly, but it's also great to sit down and be like, I'm going to write a song. Oh, you might not, but at least you're prioritizing it, in your mind, because then maybe later on that day or a couple days later, you've been working that muscle, and now it's going to decide to give you an idea. But would it have done that if you weren't working the muscle? I don't know. Maybe not.
Yeah, you don't wait for the muse to come to you. Sometimes you seek
No,
the muse.
no. I mean, and it will do that, sometimes in inopportune moments, but that's nice. And that is always what comes first. That was another thing that you were talking about, because you were asking about what it's like to sit down and write. But the way that I do it is music and lyrics are on the other end of the galaxy from each other. I never have ever written them both at the same time. Um, and the lyrics never comes first. I've
Oh,
tried that.
okay.
Yeah, I've tried to do that. I've got notebooks full of lyrics that I've never used, that I was like, okay, I'm gonna see what comes up and write it down, and then I'll try to make a song. It's never worked that way. It's always been the other way around for me, and it always comes dead last. And it's a totally different headspace too. It's almost like, I mean, it's so different in my head. It's like if I was a painter and also a chef, and someone was like, well, why don't you paint this portrait and also make creme brulee at the same time? It's like, why would I mean, it's totally different. I'm gonna fuck one of those things up probably. Like, it's, to me, they're so different. And then they just get kind of married at the end. And if you do a good job and you're a good matchmaker, then like it's perfect. You can't imagine one without the other. But they are, whenever I write the lyrics, that is rarely ever, like, oop, brilliant idea. Like I sit down and I, syllable by syllable, like, kind of carve it out of stone. It's the music's already there, so I know the rhythm, and I know, like the key, the cadence of how everything's going to go. And some syllables and some consonances lend themselves to just by way of texture, and like um, like the percussiveness of different sounds sound better. And I'll nail down a few of those, and then, okay, then and a phrase will start to emerge, and so then there'll be like a complete phrase, and then I'll go, okay, what does that mean? And then the narrative will start to come together. But at first, it's just kind of disjointed phrases that sound good rhythmically with the music, and then I kind of massage it, and then halfway through that, I realize what the song is about, and I can kind of take it home. But like midway through the song, it's just kind of nonsense, with a couple of catchy lines. By the time it's done, it's like a story,
Yeah.
or something. By the time I get done, um, I know I'm pretty sure that's how David Byrne writes, because they did a few songs where he didn't change the words. What was it? Izimbra, and he just kept it like in a nonsense language. So it's like the whole song is just like complete nonsense. But they were like the placeholder words that he used or something, and he liked it, and so he kept it.
That's cool.
Yeah, it's kind of cool.
Yeah. It it's probably, I mean, I don't really know anything about writing music. I know a lot about words, but like it's probably way easier to like bend lyrics to a song than it is to like bend a song to your lyrics, I would imagine.
Yes, that's the problem that I run into. Um, because I'll typically start with uh changes, like chord changes. And then a melody will emerge over the top of those. And that melody is going to be what it's going to be. And if I tweak it, it's not going to maintain
Hmm.
what it is. Whereas the words, if there's something I'm really trying to say, I can say it in a different amount of syllables somehow. Or, I can, it's more malleable. I can conform the message to the melody, but if I change the melody, then the song completely changes. Um, yeah, in my mind, the most important for the music that I do, the most important thing is the melody. So it takes precedence over everything else.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. What you're saying about like summoning the muse, like sitting down and writing, like
Mm,
make me realize like this is more of like a bigger issue here is like I lack discipline. Like it's hard for me to sit down and do that. It's hard
yeah,
for me to clean my room. It's hard for me to go to the gym. Do you have any advice about like how to develop discipline?
I would say there is a lot of people get hung up on the optimum way of doing things. Um, and they fixate on what they should be doing, and the thing that they should be doing is the best version of that, which is often the least feasible. So, for example, I'll talk to people and they'll be talking about, oh, I need to get into shape, or I need to lose some weight. I think I'm going to start doing this, and it's some regimen that's like so different from what they already do that it's just doomed to fail.
Like baby
You
steps.
know, yeah, it's like, well, I'm going to go to the gym every day for an hour and a half, and I'm going to do this on this day and this on this day, and I'm only going to eat this. I'm never going to. It's looking like meal prep every single meal. Like they make it so difficult to maintain,
Mm.
and they completely try to like they plan on reorganizing their life and their habits
Yeah,
all at once, and like they're going to change everything, and they don't see the immediate problem with how difficult that is to do.
yeah, that makes
It's, I would say that's the most important part to consider. So technically, the nutrition plan and the exercise regimen that you found or you tweaked and you decided was the best, backed up by whatever you were looking into. Let's say it is. It probably is. That probably is technically the best thing for you to do. How good is it going to work when you get tired of it after a week and you never do it again?
yeah.
It's not going to work. So you might as well, it's like you didn't do it at all. So I think the most important thing to consider is what is something that I can begin to do that I'll actually keep up with. And if you can engineer it so that it's like this is so easy and low commitment that it's harder to avoid doing it then like it's more difficult to. I'll do things like, remember when I used to go to the gym, I would like put on the only goal was put on your gym clothes. If you still don't want to go to the gym after you put them on, you don't have to go. And it's like, okay, fine. Because that's the hardest part. Is you put the shoes on and everything. You're like, well, fuck, I'm already in my clothes. I might as well go to the gym and work out for an hour, which is like logically, that doesn't make any sense. It's like, no, you could just take them right back off. But you've already bought into it, being like, all right, I got them on. Okay, let's go.
You're gonna feel
These,
bad about yourself. Like it's like I already got ready. Now I'm gonna take off.
yeah, it's like, oh, that feels like more work,
Yeah, yeah,
even though it's not. It isn't. We're not rational beings,
sure.
you know. Um, it's just like little simple things, like um, just making it, realizing that the perfect way to do something is probably not going to be how you do it. It's like, with like, what are you going to be able to do that you're going to continue to do is the best thing for you to do, is the way that I look at it. So if it's like, I don't that kind of, that is relevant in just about anything. Like say if it was like writing music, if it was that, okay. So it's like, find the time of day when you're naturally just kind of fucking off or whatever, and be like, all right, for sit down and do the thing that I was talking about, like where you can only write, you don't have to write, only write, um, for like a half hour or something, like a stupid small amount of time. Where if when 20 minutes comes around and you're like, all right, I got nothing, you can like stop and go on with the rest of your day. But if you do begin to write something in that half hour is going to expand into like 3 hours. Because like I wouldn't get into writing a song, be like, I got a great idea, and then beep, time's up. Okay, let's shelve it. I'm going to want to keep working on it. But
So
the hardest part was starting it.
it always is.
So
Yeah,
yeah,
I can relate to
that's daunting. It doesn't matter how many songs I make. It's like there's this dread. Like I just finished three new recordings, and as soon as there's no more work to do on it, and you don't have anything lined up next, it's like, oh my God, am I ever going to write another song again? Every single time, it's like, I don't have anything to work on right now in terms of recording. I need to write another song. Am I going to be able to do it? It's like, well, of course you can, because you did it before. But there's always that little window of shit. Am I out of gas? I don't know. But once you sit down, you start writing. Okay, there's more. You know.
that totally tracks. Like, yeah, if I'm working on something for 10 minutes, like I'll probably be working on it for an hour or two.
Absolutely. Yeah, I've sat down to work on something, and once you get into the flow state or whatever, it's like 10 hours could go by, and I'm just like, oh my God, I haven't ate or anything, but you know, you're locked in. That's one of those, it's a great feeling because you feel like you're onto something good, when you're kind of in this like zoned in zombie state where you're just like, that feels like you're tapped into the thing, whatever the thing is.
Yeah,
You're just like receiving the information.
yeah, man. Okay, that makes sense. Just set achievable goals for yourself and like, yeah, do the thing that you're.
I wouldn't even call them goals. Like goals is even kind of too daunting because you can fail at a goal, right? So I would just say like habits.
Okay, like positive habits. Yeah,
Yeah, it's like this is a good habit to have. That way, if you don't do it, that's another thing, like not beating yourself up, you know. Like um I've got weird eating habits. I'll only eat for like small windows of time throughout the day, like 5 hour little windows. But if I fuck off one day and I eat like half a cheesecake, like I don't beat myself up over it because it's like, what? That wasn't a goal for me not do that today. That's like outside of my regular habit.
yeah,
It's like, oh, it's just one day. Tomorrow's another day. You know, so it's kind of a double-edged thing because if it's um if it's a goal and you achieve your goal every day, you can also fail every day. It's
yeah.
like depending on how you look at it. So it's just like this is just, and also, I don't like the word diet because diet, people have this thing in their head. It's like, oh, diet is something that you do for a while and then you don't do it anymore. And it's like, no, diet is just what you eat as a as an animal. Like, like you're gonna, if it's really your diet, that like that's like this is how you eat now. Like
Yeah,
so pick a diet that you feel like you're gonna be able to do indefinitely. Don't
right.
pick something crazy, you know.
Yeah, I did keto for a while, and I did it for like probably like 6 weeks, and I'm like,
Yeah.
for 6 weeks, I was like, this is cool, and then I'm like, I don't ever want to do this again.
Were you in ketosis for 6 weeks or was it like on and off?
It was like on and off. I probably let me think. I did like I did like beef and eggs. That was like most of what I.
That's kind of a majority of my diet, just kind of baseline. There's a lot of animal protein, you know. I eat a lot of meat and dairy and stuff like that.
I got you.
Um, but I'm not like allergic to, I'm not a diet zealot. I'm not allergic to carbs or anything like that. I just don't eat a lot of them.
Carbs make me
Yeah.
feel like shit.
They make me tired. They make me hungry.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah. Like
so I don't indulge often.
I love pasta, but like that's not. It's like I had pasta for lunch at work yesterday, and then like was not productive at work after that.
Yeah, it really slows you down. And it sucks because I do love most of them, like pastries and breads
It's the best.
and noodles and yeah, they're great. But it's not worth the effect, the
Yeah.
weight effect, the like cognitive effect. You get foggy or I don't eat it all before I perform the day that I perform.
Oh, so you go the whole day without eating?
I'll go the whole day and then I'll eat after the show.
I don't.
And it just sharpens everything. Like all my senses are like heightened and it's long enough where it's further outside my regular eating habits where it's doing something different. It's like, all right, now it's been like over 24 hours since I ate. So it kind of gets me in a different headspace where it's like it's probably like gets me into like a hunter mentality because it's like, okay, food is scarce. So that if I feel like I can like see in Technicolor now, like
Yeah, 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 yeah.
it really focuses me and it gives me a lot of energy, weirdly enough. Um,
That makes sense.
it's kind of like it's sort of fight or flighty kind of thing that kicks in, but it helps with the shows for sure.
Yeah, that makes sense, man. Like you really do put on a good show. Like you can tell what you have fun with what you do, and like you ever see a band and like they're not having fun?
Yeah, yeah.
Like like they don't think people can tell, but yeah, they can.
You can always tell. You can always tell. You can tell when they're phoning it in.
Yeah.
You could tell when they're not into it, and you can tell when they think that you're not into it,
Hmm.
which is the worst because then like you're embarrassed because you're like, I'm sorry, this crowd sucks. I know this crowd sucks. It's not my fault. Like, I hope you guys come back here. I mean, I saw Queens of the Stone Age when they were in town, and that's like one of my favorite bands of all time. And they're like the most incredible live band, you know, unbelievably good. But the crowd was just so like, you know, like statues that
I've never been to a Queen show. That's interesting.
is and the band they even said something about it. They're like, you guys have just seen too many shows or something because like they weren't getting the regular reaction that they
Yeah.
probably normally do. Because I've seen them play in Chicago and people are just like losing their minds. But
Especially
it's
in
like jaded musicians. Yeah,
dude, that's it. Like especially
that's
in
what it was.
Nashville, when you're playing
Yeah,
in Nashville, you're playing to a room of jaded musicians,
yeah,
and it's like I don't know. Some people are too cool to like enjoy something.
yeah.
It's like, what are you here for?
I know. they really bum me out. Really bum me out. But yeah, they're killer. They're killer. They're coming back to. They're playing Memphis, I think, in October. Probably gonna catch that. Yeah, they're something else. But that I've been to a few Nashville shows where that's you could tell that that's what's going on. It's kind of a bummer.
Yeah, I think some people like where did you grow up?
Chicago.
Okay. That's what's up. There's a good music scene in Chicago. Is that where
Yeah,
your first bands were?
yep. We played around the city in little venues for a couple of years.
Right on. That I think some people like coming from New York and California, and that's not to throw shade because like you and I both have a bunch of friends that have done that, and I'm not talking about them, but like people who come from out of state to here, like sometimes think they're just gonna like bulldozer their way through, like uh, and it's competitive and clicky, and it's like
Yeah,
that is not gonna get you anywhere. Like Nashville's not where you go to like cut your teeth in music. This is the hardest place to cut your teeth. Like, not
yeah.
that,
You need to just you need to know what you're doing before you get here.
yeah. And don't step on anyone's toes. Like, stay for the bands that are playing after you. Like,
Yeah.
shake hands. Like, this is a collaboration. This is not a competition. Uh,
Hmm.
like, yeah, there's definitely like I've seen it with just touring bands. Like, I don't know. It's like I've also just seen it with audiences. Like we were talking about, like just not being really supportive, and it's like there's like an attitude of like, well, I'm better than them. Why do they have a crowd? And it's like,
See, that's what I'm trying to um, change with the East Side Riot is, I mean, we came up with the idea because there, just like you said, there's a lot of bands and there's a lot of people who know people. It's like 6 degrees of separation type of thing going on. And there's definitely enough talent um, for a identifiable scene, but it's kind of hard to put your finger on
mm,
exactly what it is or where it is.
yeah,
Um, Whereas like things that I would think of are like like Seattle in the late 80s um, with that scene, or the CBGB scene in the late 70s and in New York. It was like, oh yeah, these bands are very different, but there's like kind of a thing going on. Like Blondie and Talking Heads aren't exactly the same band, but like they were both hitting the same scene. Um,
yeah,
and I just like I feel like there's something like that can happen in Nashville, but there's not really a time and place. There's the people. Um, there's a lot of great bands. So what we're trying to do is like create a hub
yeah,
for
man.
a lot of our favorite the really good different indie alternative artists that are around. It's kind of
You do a really good
there's
job.
a place where you can go to see them, and it's at the Five Spot, and it's every couple of months.
Yeah, you do a
That's
really good
like,
job showcasing that, man. Like I've been to several of the East Side riots, and there's always some new stuff I haven't seen. Um, like and I've been around here since like 2015, and like that's what happens. You go to a show and you're like, where the fuck did this come from?
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
but you do a great job about that. You're very about the community. You do a lot about the community, and I see you and I appreciate you.
Thank you.
That's a big part of what I'm trying to do too, man. Is like just we all need to be on the same page. We all need to be
Yeah,
cohesive together.
yeah. And I want to. You were talking about how it's clicky, and I'm trying to bridge the clicks. So we very consciously we go over the lineup, and like we kind of know this vast Venn diagram. It's like, well, this is kind of these bands know each other, they have overlap on their audience. Let's wedge this one in between them
Yeah.
that has a totally different audience and expose them to each other's audiences. And then maybe it'll be less clicky and more of a scene, you know?
Yeah.
And it's like you were talking about competitive. It is competitive, but this is, I feel like, I don't know, maybe I'm thinking outdated, but if there's a hot scene somewhere in the country, that's like all high tide rises all ships type of thing.
Mm.
So if it's just like one or two standout bands that are playing at this thing that has a bunch of other bands, they're going to get attention too, just by being associated with them. Because, if someone gets signed that plays East Side Right a few times, they're going to be looking at the other ones too. It's like,
Yeah.
should we invest in these guys? Or are these worth? So it's like, it's good for everybody to support everyone around them. You know, and everybody stands to benefit from the success of one band.
Sure.
Being jealous or whatever of a band or envious that someone's getting attention and you're not is really silly.
Well, yeah, it's a small town too.
Yeah,
Like Nashville's not like there's a lot of people here, but it's not a big place. And like,
yeah, and word gets around. Like word of mouth
yeah.
factor is definitely strong here.
Oh yeah.
I think it's stronger than it is in a lot of bigger cities. There was less of a word. I experienced much less of a word of mouth effect in Chicago than I did here. Um, and there was, like I was saying, there wasn't much of um, the scene wasn't much of I'm going to stick around and watch all these bands tonight. It was my friends in that band. I'm going to see that, and then as soon as they're done, we're getting out of here. And then a new crop of people come in for the next band, and then they leave, so it was like it almost felt like, what are we doing? We're playing like everyone's playing to the same people every time they play because there's not like a culture of going out and seeing stuff that I don't know. It's I've got stuff to do. I'm gonna go see my friend, and then we're gonna go do stuff that I got to do.
Mhm.
It That was one of the reasons why I didn't have a whole lot of reservations leaving Chicago because it just didn't feel. It was great to play, and we played a lot of shows. And like you said, cutting your teeth is important before you come to Nashville. But I just didn't see it getting to that next step there the way that it could here
Yeah.
because people are more open, even though they may be jaded and they may have seen a lot of talented people. They are more open to seeing the people that they don't know here than some other towns that I've been in, which is nice.
Yeah. Yeah. We like there's a lot of good to be said about like the Nashville scene here. Um
Yeah,
yeah, it's just uh yeah, we just all have to be it doesn't benefit anyone to like you got to be nice to everyone because like you never know who's going to come up.
yeah,
Never know.
absolutely. Yeah, you never know, never know.
Yeah. So hard segue. When I say ghost story, what I really mean is like have you experienced anything you couldn't like rationalize with logic? I think psychedelic experiences count too. Just throwing that out there.
Hmm.
For me, I didn't until like I went looking for that. Like I was raised really religiously,
Mm-hmm.
and I was raised as a Jehovah's Witness, and I was also homeschooled. So I was like super cool. It's like very socially cool. And when I moved out, I was like obnoxiously atheist, like in your face atheist.
Hmm.
But then like I was dating this girl that was really like into the supernatural and like I had a phase of like, well, let's fuck around and find out. And like I say all that to like it took me going and looking for it. Like I never had anything weird happen to me until I sought it out. But
Um, Nothing comes to mind really. Just I, stupid coincidences happen all the time that are like so unremarkable that I can't even think of one, but they happen like every day.
yeah,
Where it's just like kind of seems like lazy writing, like it's a TV show that you're in, and you're like, this is if this happened in a movie, people would be like, call it on a, it's like bullshit. It'd be like such a plot device, you
yeah,
know. But that happened. That does happen in real life, and you're like, that's weird, like you know, or like little things will happen that almost feel like the universe is winking at you, like referencing that, like, oh, this big thing happened, like, and it'll kind of like a song will play in a weird setting having to do with some life-changing event, and you're just like, oh, this is dumbly like
yeah.
super coincidence is almost cinematic, you know. That's that type of stuff happens all the time, and it makes me wonder what that's all about.
That
Like,
brings
is it my mind create like just creating these like this meaning that's not really there, like making these like connections, or I don't know, something else.
no, that brings me back to what you were saying earlier about like dedicating time to just listening.
Yeah.
'Cause I think these things happen. I know exactly what you're talking about, and I think these things happen all the time. But you only see it when you're looking, you know.
Hmm.
And like, yeah, yeah, life is that I can relate to that. They're like things fall in place in weird cliche ways all the time.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's often um sort of like darkly comedic, um at my expense,
Yeah,
where it's like a joke, the punchline of a joke that could only be understood by somebody that's just been like observing the entire situation in a way that would be impossible for any actual person to be observing, like if it was literally a movie. Which it reminds me of the Greeks again, because that's how they conceived like drama and tragedy, you know, like tragedy and comedy. Um, it was like people were just sort of these playthings of the gods. Like that's all like life was. It was like this just big stage play for them to entertain themselves.
yeah,
Oscillating back and forth between tragedy and comedy, which is basically any event in life is, when it boils down to it, they got it right. It's either tragedy or comedy at any given moment.
yeah,
And it often feels like that. Like when it comes full circle, and then one of those moments happens, it seems like it's like closing the loop. It's like and scene.
yeah,
Like, ah, there we go. And it feels like it was done almost as if to be shown to an audience that isn't me, you
yeah.
know.
All you can do is laugh at the
Yeah,
absurdity.
and it's like, I see what you did there. Yeah, that's kind of fucked up, but it's definitely entertaining.
I know exactly what you mean. Yeah, the Greek comedy is a very different take than like what we think of as comedy nowadays.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
And man,
Very true.
life's a trip. There's a hundred.
And the love stories are typically, they're almost always tragedy,
Hmm,
which is another interesting
that
observation.
is interesting. I hadn't thought about that.
I can only think of one that isn't. All the other ones end in tragedy.
Which one?
Um, it is the story of Psyche and
Oh,
Eros.
yeah,
That one actually has a happy ending,
yeah.
but I can't think of any other mythological love story that ends with a happy ending.
Hades and Persephone is kind of romantic in a
That
way.
one yeah, it depends on the version, because it's depending on what version it is. The beginning is real violent,
Yeah,
very unconsensual.
but it like doesn't really end that way though.
It doesn't end that way, which is, you know, so it's not exactly like a a happy story, but it's yeah, that one's a different one. They're very complicated, a lot of very complex stories.
That
Those
reminds me of
mythological stories.
that reminds me of Miles Davis again, where it's like it's not the note you play, it's the note you play after that.
That's true.
Yeah,
That is true.
like
Yeah.
like that starts as a tragedy and then ends kind of. I don't know how I feel about that now I think about it. Like it's not really, it doesn't really end positively. It's just kind of like copacetic in a way.
Yeah, it's just kind of
It is what it is. It's a toxic relationship at
yeah,
the
they make it what it is. It's which kind of reminds me of the show The White Lotus
end.
uh that I've been watching, which is I don't watch a lot of television shows at all, like ever. But I have been slowly watching that over the last year, and that's those character arcs, those stories are very Greek in that sense. There's the way that they could go each plot line, or it's like okay, and it gets here, and then it resolves, and then everything's fine. Some of them don't end that way. Like they kind of end more like the Persephone story, where it's like, well, this is your life now, and this is the way it's going to be,
Yeah,
which is how life is sometimes.
sure.
So it's a really honest and funny and intelligent television show.
What would you say is the what's the point of life?
From whose perspective?
I guess from your perspective personally, not like what's well, I guess you could
So,
also answer it
so
like,
what's the point of my life, or what's the point of life?
okay, I guess you could, yeah, what is the point of life? Because I've heard like hedonism, which is not really a sufficient answer for me.
And when you say point, what do you mean by point?
I guess the first question would be, is there a point?
Yeah, I guess that would be the better question, and then
Is
the
there a
second
point?
one would be the follow-up. Um,
I feel like there is, uh, and I can go
the,
into like what I think, but
so like an objective or a meaning behind
yeah,
um,
I would say objective meaning,
life.
like outside of the personal.
Okay. Um,
So while you're thinking, I think my answer would be like understanding, like acceptance and understanding. Like we're all just kind of bumbling around trying to figure this out, but then like for example, like romance, like then like two people come together and like create something beautiful, and it's like understanding and acceptance. I think is it's not fun all the time. Like life is great, but it's also like a serious thing to like have a lot of
yeah.
reverence for. That's why the hedonism answer doesn't really work for me because it's life is not just about having a good time. You have a lot of responsibility as a human to like take care of your like other people and to take care of the earth.
Well, you could test that by kind of taking it to its you conduct a thought experiment and take it to its logical conclusion. Um, if you just like maximize hedonic utility, um, then you get into this like weird, bizarre world dystopia where you're just like hooked up to like an infinite pleasure machine, you know? And it's like at some point during that thought experiment, the feeling inside the person who's conducting it starts to sour, and you can just intuit that it's wrong,
Yeah,
and it's like, well, the like, what is it, reductio ad absurdum of the principle is that this would be the ideal condition. This is like what is the good life? The good life is hooked up to a fentanyl drip, like inundated with stimuli, and this like pit in your stomach kind of sinks when you actually create, like, model that universe in your head, and then that that's like the moment where two things. that you can't reduce true meaning using reason and logic, A. So it's kind of a fool's
Yeah.
errand to
Yeah.
begin
Yeah.
with. And B, this ain't it.
Yeah, man.
Because I can feel it. And it's like the you could talk in circles all day in a lot of these like silly theoretical ideological arenas, but like at the end of the day, the gut trumps everything else. Like you can't lie the gut, you can't lie to the gut. And when I play that out in my head, it's like it's not hedonism because I can feel that it's not hedonism.
Yes. Yes.
You know?
That's evidence. The same way,
Yeah.
like people can write that off, like, oh, that's just how you feel. But I would argue the same thing you're arguing is that the fact that you feel that way is evidence.
It means something. And I've ignored it before. Like it's the same alarm system that when you meet someone for this first time, you're like, I don't know about this guy. Why not? Oh, I don't know. I just have a bad
Yeah,
feeling.
trust your gut.
You ignore it 6 months later, that guy's an asshole.
Yep.
And you're like, fuck, I knew this guy was a piece of shit. Like, how did I know? I Something beyond my understanding
That's
inside of me knew that I don't know who this guy is, but the one thing I do know is that that's not a good guy.
and that is because intuition is a sense, the same way your eyes and ears are.
Yeah, it's very, and it's as important as any of those senses. Some people don't have it.
I I think you might be right about that. Yeah.
Yeah, I know some people who, if they don't have it, they have a very poorly developed sense of intuition because they do silly things. But yeah, that's what I would say about the hedonism thing is that
It's
ain't it.
not. Yeah.
It's just not it. It just seems um, self-evident that that's not it.
Isn't it funny
And
how,
yeah,
yeah, sorry.
yeah, any type of rational like word splaining that it is like just coping with the fact that it's not in my mind. It's
Yeah.
like because you can rationalize anything. Like I can, if you give me enough time, I could probably like write out like a great little thesis about like how the meaning of life is about like uh, I don't even know, like mining every planet in the universe. It's like that doesn't make any sense. But, like you can rationalize anything.
Isn't it funny how like it's easier to decide what it isn't rather than what it
Yes,
is?
yeah.
Like,
Well, it reminds me of making music because I always know when it's wrong.
mm, mm,
Because I'll try an idea and I go, nope, no. Because like when I'm creating, it's a series of no's. Because you can go in a million different directions with any given idea. So it's knowing no, 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 no. You're like blindly searching for the yes by like getting all the no's out of the way. Like that's not it. That's not it. That's not it.
yeah,
The hard one to find is the yes.
it's elimination.
Um,
Yeah,
yeah, it's a process of elimination. It's it's the notes that you don't play.
sure. Yeah, man. I knew you would be a good conversation.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
You intuited that it would be a
Yeah,
good
yeah, yeah,
conversation.
yeah, yeah.
You felt it in the gut. As far as what is the meaning, I don't know. I kind of I think about different things. I'll have different ideas about this. I'm not married to any one thing, but I don't know. It's like I think of, well, I mean, and it's like what's the meaning of life and what's the meaning of consciousness could be different answers too. Because you could have life without consciousness. And for a life form that isn't conscious, the meaning of life is something different than something that is
Right.
conscious.
You're right. It's the law of
So I guess it'd have to be like meaning of life for like sentient conscious beings.
attraction. Mhm.
I mean, it's gonna be different than the meaning of life for a yeast. That's just propagation. It's just whereas I don't think ours is. So that would be another like kind of thought
That's
experiment. It's just like, oh, it's just breed. And it's like, okay, well, let's take that to its logical conclusion. We're just like a virus.
right, right, right.
Uh,
So life itself doesn't really have meaning. Life itself just is. So that would almost imply that there isn't an objective meaning to our lives, no matter how much we philosophize about it.
I kind of like I kind of gravitate towards some mm, like Schopenhauer when it comes to his idea of the will. If you've read any Schopenhauer, it's like a like world is will is was it will? Oh, fuck, what's it? Will is representation. I can't remember the name of the fucking book. There's like this sort of life force in the university calls the will, and it's sort of the source of
I am
like
a
all
little familiar with
like
this. Yeah.
okay, it's like it's what drive. It's basically the source of suffering. It's very Buddhist in a way because it's tied to like suffering and desire. So like the will pushes you into these things, and then that's kind of where he gets this theory of aesthetics, um,
Oh, okay.
where art is the relief from the pressures of the will,
Wow.
which is great. So it's like this. So true art is this like you're able to exist in sort of this like meditative state where you have no desire, and so like suffering is alleviated when you're experiencing truly great art. You just are, and it just is. There's no like there's no um there's no struggle between the two things, like the perceived and the perceiver. um it just is, and you just are, and they exist for each other for their own sake in a way.
Yeah, no, that makes total sense. It's like that is the feeling you get when you experience and when you make.
Yeah, it's just like pure consciousness. um and yeah, I like that a lot. um
On that note, what you do is very important. What you provide to people. Um, like I wouldn't be here without live music.
yeah, I agree. Yeah, I wouldn't either. I, I don't like to think about what I would be doing. I
Yeah,
have no idea. But it's like
very spiritual, man. It like live music is church,
mhm.
like a very very real way.
Yeah, and a lot of theologians, I guess you'd say, they would agree that that's kind of um, the most spiritual way of worshiping is like through music kind of way. um, it's always been a major centerpiece of any type of religious or spiritual practice is music, you know, even very primitive drumming and chanting is still music. So it's just like this is untetherable from spirituality. Music, it's like it is
Yeah,
the same thing.
language beyond
um
words.
I liked the um I read the what's the Tolkien book, Silmarillion. You know
Silmarillion.
that?
Yeah,
Yeah, where the universe, all of creation is just a song.
dude, you really have discipline if you read the Silmarillion. Holy shit.
Yeah,
I
that was a tough one to
I've
get
taken
through.
cracks at it. Like, yeah, fuck that.
Yeah, I couldn't tell you what most of it was about, but I do. That was the part that stuck with me the most, which is basically the beginning. I think it's the beginning of the book where it describes like his cosmology. It's like there's the supreme being that creates the universe so that they can sing this beautiful, never-ending song. It's like all of existence, just this piece of music, and then parts of the music are dissonant. They begin to become more dissonant and out of tune with the song, and that's like the emergence of evil and blah 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 blah, and then Lord of the Rings and all that. But I he was like he was a like a master linguist and like a historical scholar and everything. So this all of that was like very well founded in religious practices
Oh yeah.
all over the world, and he's like he kind of synthesized that. So it's like that's how important music is to spirituality. It's like kind of like one and the same.
Yeah.
And Schopenhauer would say that music is the when you would rank the art forms, that music was at the top because all other art forms sort of strive to achieve the purity of form that music has. Because music kind of perfectly exists in as like this like platonic like ideal in the consciousness of the perceiver, because it only happens as it's being perceived, and then it doesn't exist at all.
Sure.
It's only in the moment that it's being perceived, and it can be entirely abstract. So it can be a total abstraction with no language or anything associated with it. It's just pure art. It's just the music, and it doesn't exist anywhere other than in here, uh, as the listener is hearing it.
That's like high met,
Um,
especially like Bach or
yeah,
Mozart or Miles Davis or like some of like Eastern music like Indian stuff.
which were all spiritual music too. Like Bach was composing for the church. Mozart did a lot of composing for the church. Um, the Eastern music is spiritual music. Um, I mean, even Miles Davis, a lot of that came from
Some of that
gospel and
dark spiritual.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. There's spirituality going in there too. I mean, the psychedelic stuff for sure. Um, so spirituality is very. I like to include some sort of so that element into the music that I make, and the performance and the visuals. I kind of have that in my head. This kind of I'm kind of acting as like some sort of modern shaman, you know.
Yeah.
It's like if going to like a rock concert in 2024 is like going to the campfire, you know, and having some sort of communal religious experience, then I would be like the shaman
Yeah.
of the thing, which is an
And it's a
important role.
healing. It's a healing.
And they're not there to see me.
Mhm.
I'm just there as
Yep.
the intermediary. Like this music is I'm acting as an avatar for this thing that they're here to see. So it's not really about me. That's probably one reason why I'm comfortable getting on stage, because it's like I'm I'm just the messenger. You know?
Yeah.
Like it's I'm kind of acting as this like uh conduit, I guess,
Yeah.
for this thing that they want to see. But it also takes the pressure off me. It's like,
That's
they're,
no, yeah,
they're
that's a beautiful thing, man.
that's how I see it. That's how I see it when I perform and when I write. That I'm kind of the avatar. I'm delivering the thing. You know. Um, I mean, I even have a song, a pray that's like right there in the words. The song "Pray." It's kind of like a weird occult flavored tune,
Nice.
sort of spiritual. Yeah,
Yeah. A good song is a prayer.
yeah, it is.
Well,
I
Alice,
agree.
you can come experience a prayer at Eastside Riot, July 27th at the 5 spot. Brad, thank you for doing this.
Thanks for having me. It's a lot of fun.
And I don't have like delusions of grandeur or anything, but I do think this kind of thing is important, and I don't think there's enough of it. So I thank you for taking time out of your day to come do this, and I'd love to talk to you again sometime.
Yeah, I'd love to come back on. If you ever want to have me back on, let me know, and maybe we can do it in person.
Yeah, next time I'd love to have you in person. That's what
Yeah,
we
that'd be great.
yeah, without going into too much detail, it's just not, it didn't work out that way. But yeah, absolutely. Let's do this again. Alice, go check out Blind Matador. Go to East Side Riot. Blind Matador's got some new music coming out soon. It might already be out when this is up, so just keep your eyes peeled. And we will see you next week. Bye.